The following presentation is a gift from the team at Streamline Publishing, publishers of Fine Art Connoisseur, Plein Air Magazine, and weekly newsletters Fine Art Today, Realism Today, Plein Air Today, and American Watercolor, and events, the Plein Air Convention and the Figurative Art Convention. We offer over 400 different art instruction tutorials and ultra high-quality video by the world's leading artists. If you like what you see, help us support our artists and our team with your purchase. Each video aired has a special discount code for today only in the comments section with a link to the video offered. And to see everything we do, or if you want to receive notice of new releases, new products, and new events for artists, simply click the other link, which says, "See everything we do." Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric Rhodes with Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazines. We are always trying to help you stretch and grow and learn new things. And you can learn things from any kind of a subject matter, like painting animals, for instance. Johanne Mangi is one of the best at doing animals. She does great dog portraits, she does great horse portraits, and she's going to teach you about painting horses today in this video.
Hello, welcome to my borrowed studio. I'm Johanne Mangi. You probably are familiar with my animal paintings, primarily dog paintings. But today we're going to paint a horse, and I think you're going to enjoy it because it's not just going to be about a horse, so you're in luck there. It's going to be about capturing something alive, and the painting process you'll be able to transfer to any other subject, as I feel, as long as you love that subject. Now, you may think this is the most boring part of the DVD, but it's not. I'm going to share a little important information you're going to want to know. There's no fast forwarding on this DVD. You have to see the whole thing. I think you can speed it up, but I don't want you to miss anything. You have to see the whole thing first, and then you can cherry pick. Just saying that. I'm getting that out there right now. So one of the things I think you need to know is that why am I painting a horse? Who am I to teach you how to paint a horse? Well, I feel I can paint anything that I love, and I feel you should be able to also. But in order to teach that, I feel that I have to have a legitimate background in it. Painting it is one thing, teaching it is another. So that's how I felt about my dog painting video. It's how I feel when I teach people, about wild animals, and certainly now about the horses. Good part of my adult life, I owned a farm. I owned, trained, showed horses, so I have an intimate knowledge of them. And so I just feel that's an important aspect, so that with authority, I can tell you some things. But you don't need to own a horse. You just need to pay attention to a few things, and that's what we're going to do in this DVD. There'll be a lot of reference photos for you to use, and I'm going to paint from a photo because that's pretty much what you're going to do. But we are going to see a live horse and put that in motion so that it's easier for you to relate to the photos, because there's optical illusions in the photos that occur, which I'm sure you're aware of if you've painted from photos with other things. So we want to alleviate those discrepancies, and by having a live animal, we tried to get the live animal into the studio, but he was a little shy, so we had to go to a farm, but that's okay. It's good to have them in their natural environment. But so there's a lot of information that you're going to get. I'm not a typical teacher. I strive to find ways to for light bulbs to go off with people. So that doesn't mean, it actually does mean I find other ways to say things. So they may be familiar terms to you, but I do it in a way that I'm looking for those light bulb moments. I'm trying to take away barriers for you guys so that you can enjoy painting more. I don't care if you're a beginner. I don't care if you're an accomplished painter. I've had people come to me in my workshops who are working artists, and they're so overwhelmed by the fur on a dog or any kind of animal, and it's all about the structure. So we're going to just pick out some key landmarks, and we're going to go from there. I think that's all you need to know right now. The next thing on my list is going through the materials. It's a very important aspect, and I think you're going to be surprised at what I have to say. So now we're gonna cover materials. First and foremost, people are always curious as to what brushes I use. I do have a brush pack put out by Rosemary and Company, and I agonized over this brush pack because I didn't want people to have to buy more than they needed, and I wanted them to be able to use it for everything. I tend to use filberts. I've used flat brushes, but I always come back to filberts, and I think it's part of it is because that's what I started with. So I'm most comfortable with filberts. I feel I can do everything with filberts. And people think that I have a fancy brush to do things like for the mane or animals with long hair, and it's not. It's brush handling, it's paint handling, and that's all it is, and I could probably do it with any brush that I have. But what I'm going to be using today are these Eclipse long filberts. Tend to use these, and usually like, this is a 9, but usually an 8 or a 10. I usually go for bigger brushes, and then I will go down to a 2 for the iris, for the eyes, but I always start out with a bigger brush for the eyes. And I err on the side of bigger brush because you're just going to get a lot of choppy brush marks, and really what you want is beautiful brushwork. When I'm towards the end of a painting, that's the first thing I look at. I go from corner to corner, all the way down the painting, and the brushwork has to look beautiful and interesting to me. It's not just about getting a likeness and getting something down. It's about the brushwork. So we're going to cover that. And then I also have, this is a master's brush. This is a soft brush. So some type of soft brush would be that you want. These Eclipse are my workhorse brushes. So, and I'll talk about them, I'll mention them while I'm painting, but that's basically what I have. I have a few sables, but that's all in this brush pack. It's not an expensive pack. There's 7 brushes, and every size you could need. I'm not pushing this because you could just buy them individually. You don't need to, but when I say I agonized over it, I was trying to figure out what's the minimum amount of brushes somebody would need to paint as I'm painting, and that's that. Even more important than paints, brushes, miscellaneous items, are the supports. I can't say enough about the importance of a good support. And if you want to paint the way I paint, and I say that only because people are always saying, how do you get those brush strokes and how do you get that, that movement? I get the movement because the supports they don't grab the paint and the paint doesn't sink. I tend to like supports that are slicker. And you don't have to have them as slick as sometimes I do. What I'm using today is a Raymar C13 double primed. And the reason I like these, I've tried other things. And sometimes I take other panels and I'll put an oil primer on them to make them even slicker. You should try that. You might not like it. This is kind of in between. It's slick enough, and here's the other thing about it. If I don't like what I put down here, I can wipe it right back down to the bottom, right to the panel, and without a ghost image. And that's important to me because many times my paintings are works in progress. And if I don't like how something was put down, I put a stroke down, I put 2 strokes down, they didn't work for me, I don't even hesitate. I wipe it. And I like to know that I'm starting with a clean slate again. And other people don't necessarily like to work like that. But for me, mentally, I feel I have to have that. It's not that I can't paint on other supports, and I've painted on spectacular linen that does leave a bit of an image, but I don't need to spend that kind of money because this is more what I need. And the other thing is and like I said, if I put an oil primer on a lesser grade panel, I can have it do all that I want it to do. And then other miscellaneous accessories, I can show you. This has changed my life. Another artist, you know those little keys that you put on the paint to squeeze out the paint? There's a metal one, and Michelle Byrne, I never bought one because I never wanted to spend the money. I think there was 20 some odd dollars. And I said, oh, I don't need that. Well, let me tell you, I have it in the studio and I use it all the time, and I squeeze out every ounce of paint out of the tubes. And it's like amazing. So that, hands down, that's an investment I would make if you're working in the studio. You don't want to lug it around if you're doing plein air painting, but certainly in the studio, it's highly useful. So if I think of anything else, I mean, you'll see I use Gamsol. I am going to use Neo McGilp. Probably I'll use this, Neo McGilp. The reason I like this is sometimes I don't use a medium, but if I want to use a medium, this is what I use because it's non-toxic. And aside from that, I don't have to think about how much I mix with my paints. It doesn't matter. I want a little dab, I want a whole lot to make it transparent, more transparent. I can use this. So when they say this medium, you can't add more than 20-25%, I'm like, I don't know how much I'm putting in the thing. So the other thing about this is it adds a nice little gloss to the finished painting. And I like that. I don't want, I'll varnish, but sometimes I don't have to. I use this. And that's kind of like a little Benny with this product. So you'll see how I use this. I'm pretty sure I'll be using it. You know, it depends on conditions. When I was out in Arizona recently, the paint reacted differently, so I had to do different things. But I think it's a little humid here, but I think we'll be okay. So that's that. So now we're going to put some paint on the palette. Now I'm going to put out my palette, and it'll be really interesting for you. Some of it's kind of traditionally set. I know where all my colors are, and I don't necessarily use a lot of colors that are on my permanent palette. And my plan today is to work with a modified limited palette. So when I add colors, I add them in different spots. So I'll explain as I do this. But when I kind of place something on the canvas, I like to use transparent oxide yellow. And that's my choice of brand is Rembrandt. They're reasonably priced, and they're nice and creamy. So I have a couple of others that I use that I can't get from Rembrandt, but primarily I use Rembrandt. Been very happy with them. So that's transparent oxide yellow. Then I'll use transparent oxide brown. And to tell you the truth, I don't always put that out. It depends on what my subject matter is. I also, when I'm using a limited palette, lots of times I use ivory black. You shouldn't be afraid of black, but you do have to use it judiciously. You can't rely on it. You know, I use it to pretty much mix with other things. Let's see, then I usually put down, so this is a permanent blue violet. It's similar to permanent mauve, which is the other, that's a Winsor, this is Rembrandt. Permanent mauve is a Winsor Newton color, but I found that this is exactly the same color. And I like it because it's kind of like a grayed version of purple. So sometimes I mix that with transparent oxide red to get some nice color. And then I put a little bit of this on because I just love this color. And you know, you got to have fun colors. So this goes a long way because you only need a little bit. This one is cobalt turquoise light. So I put a little bit of that next to that purple. And these are all colors, even though that transparent oxide yellow is permanently on my palette, I keep it there because I know it's there. So I haven't moved it into here because it just confuses me, and I want to know when I'm going to dip into paint that I know where it exactly is. So before I get into my regular colors, I'm going to show you two other colors which are great for white horses, white dogs, light-colored animals. This is Naples Yellow Light, and this is Rembrandt. When I use this, it's not the same as other Naples Yellow Light. So, you know, brand to brand is a little different. And then I use Brilliant Yellow Extra Pale, which is a white, even though it says it's yellow. And this is Vasari. And I don't need to use this. I consider this a convenience color. I can easily get this by taking mixed white or titanium white and just dabbing a teeny bit of yellow or yellow ochre or something like that. Like just like a sniff of color in it to make it look like that. So I'm throwing that on there because I might want to use it just to speed things up. So now let's get into my regular colors. This is Ultramarine Deep. And I usually leave a spot, separate, because sometimes I put cobalt blue light out, but we're not using that. But again, I'm doing this because I know where the colors are. So that's why, you know, there'll be a little gap there. Then the next one is Viridian. So let's see, we have yellow ochre. So I'm actually going to put this up here because that's where my yellow ochre always is on my palette. And I don't need to be confused any more than I usually am. And let's see. Then I want transparent oxide red. I always want to say transparent red oxide, but it's actually oxide red, transparent oxide red. And the reason I put that here, and actually I might have to move, I might have to move those. I might have to move these. I want to move these. because I want them closer to where I usually have them. I got confused. Not a big deal, but the reason I have the red where I have it is because I'm usually mixing these three colors together. So that's why it's done like that. And it doesn't bother me, there's a space here. Not at all. Okay, and then the next thing would be, let's see, I would put Terra Rosa there. And that's one of those colors that I have to use Winsor Newton, or I have to use Gamblin. Gamblin has one called Venetian Red. I don't think I took the Gamblin. I think I took this one because I was using it before I was using it in the studio before I left. So that would be there. So that's Terra Rosa. And the next one will be permanent alizarin crimson. We'll stick that there. And I'm putting it, you can see I'm putting out a good amount of paint. And I do that at home. I do put out a good amount of paint, especially these colors right here, because I dip into those all the time, and white, and then maybe here. Not so much here, maybe the transparent oxide yellow, I go through quite a bit. Okay, next is a cadmium red. And I actually don't need a lot of this. I might do it just because it's pretty and I want everything to be uniform. But red goes a long way, so I don't tend to need a whole lot of it. I'm usually like, I might just dip into it. Next would be cadmium orange. I love cadmium orange. I try and find ways to use cadmium orange all the time, just to brighten things up. It's like, it's wonderful in transparent oxide red and even alizarin. Oh my God, yeah, it's great. And you don't need to put out that much. I mean, because the cadmiums are so strong, I also have a Gamblin alizarin permanent. And sometimes what I do, and the reason I put the black out is because I might darken this alizarin by putting that ivory black in, because that's transparent, and I might want a little darker alizarin. Gamblin used to make one like that, and I kind of got hooked on it, and now it's hard to get. I have an old tube of it that I have been savoring. Okay, next on the list is, let's see, at home sometimes I put out yellow deep, but we're not doing that. We don't need it. What I do need is this. Nope, not that one. Here it is. This is Cad Yellow Pale. And I actually didn't bring it. And you don't need a lot of this either, oh my God. And it stays soft on your palette for like days. So, you know, you don't have to keep re-upping. What I do need is white, in addition to these lighter colors over here. And here's what I do with white. I put usually 3 squiggles down so that I always have a clean pile. And it's kind of like a joke with a friend of mine about the 3 piles. But let me tell you, it's great. If you have contaminated the white, you got a fresh pile. So that's pretty much how the palette works. I do have, like, you know, a few extra things on here, and I'll show you how I use it. If I'm using a limited palette, normally I would use ivory black, yellow ochre, and Terra Rosa and white. So that's basically my palette. I'm going to show you how I think it's fun to put tricolors out, but I don't recommend you put all like new colors out that you use. How I think of it is how I learned to cook, which I used to do a lot of. Unfortunately for my husband, I paint now instead of cooking, so it doesn't occur. But when I wanted to learn how to use something new, like an herb, I would take time and I would spend a week with just cooking with thyme. And then I knew everything about that herb. That's what I'm going to suggest that you do with any new color. Go ahead and put a new color on your palette. That's the fun of painting. But if you put a bunch of new ones on, you're going to be overwhelmed and you won't use any of them and you'll make a mess. So pick one, say that's the one I'm going to work with that week, and play. That's what I recommend, and that's maybe what we'll do today with something. Okay, we're moving on now. Okay, so hopefully you haven't hit the snooze button yet. I'll know if you do. But the next thing we're going to talk about is preparation, is the way I am phrasing it. And that means fitting painting into your lifestyle. I know there are a lot of people every day, that's all they think about is being able to paint, and then life gets in the way. Trust me, because I know, and I like being married, so it's a real challenge. The first thing you have to do is show up. Now, how do you do that? That's really the hardest part. I think primarily you have to decide, you have to find out when is the best time for you to paint. Is it in the morning? Is it after lunch? Is it after the kids go to bed? Is it before dinner? You know, that really is the first. You can't say, I'll do it when I can fit it in, because trust me, it's not going to happen. So the first thing you have to do is identify when are you're most productive. And some people, it's first thing in the morning. It is for me. If I can't get into the studio first thing in the morning, I'm basically screwed for the rest of the day. I might be able to get back in there in the afternoon, but my most productive time is first thing in the morning. So I try and arrange things around that. So if I'm working out, if I have an appointment, a doctor's appointment, whatever, I'm usually scheduling things for the afternoon. Don't interfere with my morning. So that's the first thing I'm going to suggest. And if you don't do that, it's very basic. You have to do that. Then the second thing is, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but I'm telling you this works. You take your iPhone and, oh, look, you take your iPhone, you hit the clock, you got a timer. If you have an hour, I don't care, 45, this says 45 minutes, because obviously I used it. I'll hit start, and I'm in the studio for 45, and I don't have to look at the clock. I let the phone do it for me. I buffer some time in there, so if I have to be somewhere, say it was actually an hour, I had an hour, I'll say I've got 45 minutes in the studio. And I don't care what you do, if it's you just put out your palette, if you just pick a photo, if you just, think about what you want to do. It's the first step in expecting to paint. And it actually becomes a habit. And we know all about habits, bad habits, good habits, eating habits. This is a habit. And you trust me. You have to trust me. Don't trust me. Just try it. Just try it, and you'll see what I mean. It takes that pressure and that stress off of you that I have someplace to be. The phone's going to tell you when you have to do it. So usually I put it in. I give myself like 10 minutes so I can go get ready if I need to make myself look like something. Because 10 minutes, 45 minutes, it doesn't matter. I look the same. So I do that, and I still do it. I've been doing it for a couple of years, and I'm telling you, it changed everything for me. I expect to be in the studio. I don't worry about how much time I have in the studio. Sometimes I'll put that timer on for 2 hours. Sometimes it's a half hour. Sometimes it's 20 minutes. Gets me in the studio because I know I'm cool. I know when I have to leave. And it doesn't matter if you haven't picked up a paintbrush. You're in your little space for painting. And that's the most important thing. So you start with that. So the next thing is, actually you could just use that time, just choose what you're going to paint. If you're in the studio, you could be setting up a still life. If you're going to paint a horse, you can access photos. You can just decide, what you want to paint for fun. And the whole point, we could talk about composition, but I'm going to tell you something. When I first started to paint, it's about getting the paint down. It's not about agonizing over, is this right, is that right? I'm telling you, the most important thing is get yourself in the studio, pick up a brush, and put paint on the panel. I don't care where you put that paint. It doesn't matter. The point is, you're painting, you expect to paint. That's probably the most important thing I could tell you right now. And I'm going to be telling it to you again. I'll be saying it again. Composition, I just don't want you to get bogged down. It'll come. You're going to learn to intuitively just look at paint, look at what other people are doing. Look at the paintings that you're attracted to. And then you'll absorb that. And you'll intuitively be able to do that. You have to trust yourself. And that's what I'm all about. I think now we're going to move on to more of the anatomy. And you're also going to be able to see the live demonstration that we did at the farm, pointing out certain landmarks, which are, there aren't a whole lot that you need to know, but there's a few, and that's what we're going to do. Hi, it's Johanne. We're out at Sam Gray Horse's farm, and we're going to spend a little time looking at horse anatomy. The reason we're using live animals, aside from the fact I like to paint live, couldn't get the horse in the studio. So you'll have a lot of reference photos to look at the end of, it comes with the DVD. But there's going to be things that are going to be difficult for you to interpret, and so that's why we're doing it with a live animal. So you're going to see it for real, and you'll be able to interpret what you're looking at when you use photographs. So we have 2 horses, a light white horse and a bay, and the reason for that is because certain landmarks will be easier to identify and see on a lighter horse as opposed to this horse, and the opposite's true also. So I'd like to start with kind of like the bigger shapes that you have to look for, because you're gonna see a lot of things in a photograph, and unless you go out, you really have to see this live. So this is what we're hoping to accomplish today. So the first thing on every single horse is this diamond shape right here. They all have it, and oh baby, and they all catch the light. Okay, there goes my, okay. I was saving that. So it's prominent and it's important. The next big shape is what they call a masseter muscle. This big flat, here, you can have this. Okay, fine. This big flat shape, let's see, on this one. Okay, here, you can have this, and then would you just let me do this? Okay. So it's a little bit rounded, and then it drops off here. And at this point, this is where the head narrows. And then it goes up, it drops off, the plane drops off, and it goes under. And then here you have a couple of other really important spots, is the zygomatic, they call it the zygomatic arch. That's that prominent area here up around the eye. And then it comes down. This is the facial crest. These are things that all horses have. Some may be more prominent than others. And on this, I'm going to go to this guy because it's probably easier to see this depression area up over the eye. So let me see on this guy. So I just want to go back to this area. I know they're getting a little impatient because there's flies around here. And they know there's grass around. But there's the nasal bone, that's all part of this diamond shape, is the nasal bone and frontal bone. So it's all bone. So when you have bone, there'll be form, and the light strikes in a certain way. So when we come up to here, the eye, it's very prominent. The orbital area and socket is very prominent and comes forward. And that orbital arch would be the widest part of the horse's head. Where this is where it narrows down here, where the masseter muscle ends, this would be the widest part of the horse. So it goes like that. And then the eyes, you probably can see it. This one has like a V-shaped to the upper eyelid, and he has a kind of a C shape. So you have to look for that, because that would maybe be a distinguishing factor with an individual horse. So this whole area, so I look at this, and when there's it's kind of like a funnel shape here. There's also a funnel shape here to the nostrils, but I see it here, how it's formed. And then this comes out, and the eyes are on the side of the head, more the side, not like on another animal where they may be towards the front. This horse's eyes are on the side, and the eyeball will, let me see if you can see. Oh, I know, the bugs are bad. You can see this eyeball, kind of, it's like a tennis ball, the shape, and it projects out. And the eyebrow comes out over it and around the side. And then the inner eyebrow kind of covers that eye. So it's a little thing, but it's going to make all the difference to the believability of what you're painting. There's a whole bunch of other things, but their teeth go way back. Their teeth go way back in the mouth. But so that's all those like ridges that you're seeing, but don't get bogged down by that. The important things, that eye of the horse is really important, how it sits in and on the head, and the facial crest. Because what I see people do is they put the eyes level, and the horse is never going to look like a horse. So it's angled and it's to the side, and that's how they can see. They have that unique peripheral vision, so that you can't sneak up on a horse. So since you're doing a portrait, you're also, it's not just about the head. You'll probably include some of the neck and the chest. So this prominent muscle, actually the neck is composed of like 100 muscles. So, but we're going to be concerned about this one, which is called the brachiocephalicus. It's Latin. It's a dead language. Nobody knows how to say it. So the way I said it's correct. Just figure. And then this is the sternocephalicus right here. So those are the two prominent. And of course, this down here is the pectoral. The jugular runs between here. So if you want to know their pulse, you could just stick your finger in there and get their pulse. That's it. Now comes the fun part. We're gonna actually block in, for real, we're gonna do this now. There's been a lot of prep work getting up to this point, so I'm hoping I remember how to paint. Anyway, what is up on the screen is what I've chosen for this DVD. It's a white horse. White was not what I was originally going to paint. I tried a couple of different things and I thought, hey, you know what? Aside from painting the horse, wouldn't it be great? People like to know how to paint white, that it can be very colorful. So that was, you know, another factor in how I chose this paint, this horse. The other thing was that there's a lot of movement in the horse. When I paint in the studio, I'll try things out, you know, with maybe static poses and try and make them interesting. So there's a lot of movement in this photo and there's strong lighting. So that's another thing that I thought would be really good for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to use the grid. I'm going to mark these lines. I waited to mark the lines so you could, I want you to see everything. So I suppose this part you could fast forward if you thought that was boring. But anyway, I'm going to use transparent oxide yellow and a little Gamsol because it can, you know, can be a little drippy. I don't care. And I did put tick marks on here because I didn't want to spend all my time doing this. So I'm just, and frankly, I wouldn't necessarily, I'd measure the tick marks. This is a 16 by 20 panel. And if I were just, you know, wanting some type of grid, I probably wouldn't even bother with the ruler. But I'm trying to make this as neat as possible. And the other thing that I probably also wouldn't do is I wouldn't carry the grid out all the way, because I wouldn't need it. So, and then once I do get things placed, I'll get rid of some of those marks because I won't need them. But right now I've kind of decided where I want the horse to be. Okay, oh wow, I'm looking at this photo and I just realized that see, this is what I'm saying. Stuff happens. I have my tick marks in the wrong spot, not the verticals, but the horizontals. So I am going to fix that. All right, so I have to fix the tick marks on here. I'm using a 16 by 20 panel. So 4 inches is going to be my measurement. So my horizontals were not correct. So I'm going to put them in now. They have to be at 4, 8, 12. Better to find out now. 4, 8, 12. Okay, and then 16. So I'm not really bothered by this because, you know, these marks are going to go away. They're just kind of a guide for me. And I'm not going to say they take some of the thinking away, but it just takes a little pressure off. So you're going to find that the grid's going to kind of be a little bit of a friend to you. But I've seen people use grids and they actually lose some of the life because they're just kind of bound. Now, what's going to happen is when I paint, stuff gets bigger, and then I carve back in. I'm always trying to I'm looking to create form. And that's really what this is about, is identifying form and how things all fit together. And that's why I point out the landmarks, and we'll talk about that as we're doing it. So when I start, I want the eyes in the proper spot, and obviously the nose. So I'm looking at this, and so I would say that eye socket is somewhere there, and he's tipped up. And actually, this is here. And you're going to find that sometimes you can get fooled by where things are. I see this all the time with students. It's amazing. And you think something is where it is, and it's not. So, and I'm only using, it's actually a size 4 long filbert. And it's only for, actually, no, I don't want this. I thought that was a little small. This is 6. We're going to use the 6. All right, so that eye, and I'm just not being too careful. And I might have to adjust what I'm doing. So this eye is kind of up here. And it'll look like something pretty soon. But don't worry if it doesn't for a little bit, because that's just the way it is. And lots of times I will paint freehand, because I'm always testing my ability. But I just don't. I don't worry about. I just don't. I don't worry about. Like, oh, she's cheating. She's using a grid. Because frankly, the way I look at it is it's the finished product that matters. And I know some really good painters, and let me tell you, they're projecting, which I don't do. They're using grids. They're transferring thumbnails. They're doing, and their work's amazing. So that's my thing, is that I don't care if it's the finished product that matters. You get there however you need to get there, and that's the most important thing. So right now I'm just focusing on. I'm not really too concerned about perfection. I'm just trying to get something down. You got to get something down so you have something to work with, and that's what I'm focused on. I'm just trying to get something down, and then the rest of it'll come. Because if you don't have anything to start with, you've got nowhere to go. Basically, right? It makes me think of, I think it was, I tell this story a lot, so if you've heard it before, I'm sorry. But is it Norman, oh God, the one that wrote, he's the guy that wrote The Odd Couple, and it's not Norman Mailer. So anyway, I remember seeing him on a talk show, and they said, "What's your work schedule like? How do you write? Like, how do you get this all done?" And he said, "Oh, every day I get up and I go into the office, and he has a place to go, and it's in his house upstairs, whatever it is." And he said that he sits down, he knows exactly what he's going to do that day. He's going to write, and he writes the first thing that comes to his head, and it doesn't even have to make sense. But the point he made, and oh my God, it just lived with me forever, is that he says, if I don't have anything down, I have nothing to work with. And I was like, wow, that's brilliant. So that's what this is all about. This is get something down. Because if you're staring at a blank canvas, you've got nothing to work with. If I put something down, I've got somewhere to go. And that's how I look at this. And that's what I'm doing. So some of this may look a little hard to interpret, but that's okay, because it's not the real detailed information that we need. I just need to get an idea. See, that's looking like a horse head to me. I don't know about you, but I think that's looking like a horse head. And what you're going to see when you go out to the farm is you're going to see, and I see this happen all the time, like when I do workshops, people tend to, instead of realizing that the eyes, because our eyes are in the front of our head, these animals, like these horses, their eyes are more set on the side. And so we're programmed, they'll put the eyes forward and they'll wonder why they don't look right, and that's the reason. So you have to remember that they're shaped like a ball, and the cornea, I guess, the cornea, it bulges out, and that's what you see. And then you'll see the upper eyelid comes over that ball. So these are things that, you're probably used to hearing, paint what you see, if you're a landscape artist or whatever. And I used to always say, you better paint what you know. Because, if you're painting from photographs, and I recommend you paint something from life, because you'll just have a different take on all the photos that you utilize. But you do have to know some of the structure. That's going to save you when you have these photographs. And then you'll be able to do anything you want. But if you don't understand the structure, and I'm not suggesting that you learn every bone that's in the horse, but there are just certain things you have to know. Like, obviously we need to know about the muzzle here, and this, you can't really see it here, but that's going to be the facial crest, and this is right here is that masseter muscle, and you're not really going to see it over here, and it's going to be a little tricky, because we're going to have to use temperature to make some of this work. Because as I'm looking at this now, I can see this muscle comes out like this, and you may not be able to see it because it's very subtle. So I like to use transparent oxide yellow for a couple of reasons. Why I like to use it is because it's not hard on my eye, and this might have to come down. It's not hard on my eye, and then if I'm lucky, some of it will show through, and it'll give a glow to the painting. And when it happens, it's really pretty cool. So that's why I really like using that. And so I recommend that, you know, you'll probably end up loving it yourself. I know people that use red. Now see, this ear needs to come out here. They'll use red as like an under tone, and I think that's really cool, but I don't know, I've never really been able to like pull that off. I guess if I did, you know, with landscape, because that makes sense, because you know, there's like a lot of greens and stuff. But, so what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to get an idea of and you can see I'm just pretty loose with stuff. Pretty loose. I'm just making marks, just trying to get an idea where I'm gonna want some stuff. And just seeing how this is all gonna fit in for me. It's just kind of fun. This is like the best part, really, because I don't, you know, I'm not really committed yet. I'm just kind of searching out what I want to do, and I'm just kind of making sure that things fit. And if I get the right stuff in the right place, then I'm in good shape. And the other thing is, my plan is that everything I do, you're going to see. So if I take a break, I won't be working on the painting and then come back. I hate that. Have you ever had a DVD and you're watching a DVD and they take a break and then they come back and you know they did something to the painting. You're not sure what they did. We're not doing that. We're not going to do that. We're gonna give you the whole kit and caboodle. So if I make mistakes, well, wait, there are no mistakes. I might have to restate, but not repaint. How's that? So, and you're going to see all of that. So right now, I'm just, this is that lower eyelid, which is hard to see right now, but I've been looking at this photograph, so I know even though this is dark, so this is going to have to come up. This comes up a speck. Comes up a speck. Okay, that's better. Through here, that nostril. At some point I'll have to stop doing this and do something else. But I just want to make sure. There's a little lip under there, so that goes like that, and like that. Okay. And let's just see if I've got enough nose down here. Might even have too much, but we're not going to worry about that. Let's just get the rest of this in. I know a lot of people they'll use combination, they'll use burnt umber and ultramarine blue. You could do that. I'm not dictating, what you should or shouldn't use. It just happens that I enjoy using this transparent oxide yellow. Oh, and then there's this nice little, look at that light there. That's going to be really good. Little pink, that pink on his muzzle. That's going to be nice. And then that goes there. Doot, doot. And then here's that muscle that I was talking about. This is a big muscle here. There's like a few muscles. They converge. So let's see, this one starts up here. This is the neck. Okay. That neck. So that orbital arch is right there, that wide part, and then the neck comes out here. And I'm not going to worry about indents on that now, just kind of getting that gesture. There's that gesture there. And then it kind of goes off. And then over here, so at some point, I'll this is more over here. So at some point, I'll have you ever, like, you do something and then you go, oh, this looks like really good. I'm gonna go show my husband or something like that. And then you show him, and you're looking at it, and it's like uber cool. Like what you did is uber cool, and they look at it and they don't see it the same way you see it, and they go, they don't know what to say. It's kind of like if you ask them, do I look fat in this? It's kind of like that. Yeah. They don't give you the response you want that you're looking for, because they don't know what they're looking at. And we're looking for some, reassurance that, look what we did, isn't this great? And we don't get it. So that's where you just have to have the resolve that you know what you're doing and stick to it, and don't let people get in your way. Because here, I'm going to take some of these lines out because I don't need them now, because I know where that's going to be. And oh God, it used to annoy me. I'd go and he'd say, well, he wouldn't really give me an answer, and because I know he's in his head, he's thinking, I don't know if I should. What should I say? I can't win this, and so then I would just say, you don't know what you're looking at. This is great. So yeah. So I say, don't worry about stuff like that. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's a process. Let me tell you, it's a process. And you better like the process. So that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, this is fun. I love this part. I really love this part. You know why? There's a lot of hope in this painting at this point. You know, I haven't had a chance to just kind of mess it up. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of some of these lines because they're a little distracting to me at this point, even though it's the transparent oxide yellow that I like. And I kind of can still see them if I need to, you know, restate my lines, which might be important. So that's okay. And now, let's see. I might put a little more. And so there's like some decisions you're going to have to make. Okay, I'm hoping you can see where we're going with this. I might put more paint on now. Actually, I think I'll put a little in here. That goes there. Yeah, I'm gonna switch photos, and let's just make sure this is where this is. And there's going to be probably some things that I'm going to avoid, that I don't think are going to make the painting any stronger, but that you'll see it in the photograph. Okay, so that's basically what I would use as a roadmap for the next step. And the next step will be, I got to think about what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the next photo, which will be a high resolution, but I think I pretty much like the way this is placed, and I think this is what we can work with. So that's it to what I call my block-in. It's not really an underpainting yet. We'll do that. The next thing will be the underpainting. I do a lot with the underpainting. Actually, the underpainting, in many ways, when I get to the underpainting, and I do a lot of the underpainting, there's not a whole lot after that because you don't need a whole lot. A lot happens in the underpainting. So let's see if I can pull that off. That'll be the next thing. Okay, so now we're going to move on to more of underpainting. This was placement. So I'm going to switch photos. I think I just want to add a little more of this underneath in here because this will be useful. And yeah, I'm using a little brush right now because that's what I was basically drawing with. So it doesn't really matter, but I just want to get a little more on here. I don't want any there because I don't want to lose that line. Okay, so that's kind of where the shadow is. nice yellow oxide there. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is, I mentioned I was working with a limited palette, a modified limited palette, because the limited palette would be like 3 colors in white. And I could do that, but I want this. Oh, there's a reason. Oh, there's my timer. I have that timer set because I wanted you to see what happens when the timer goes off. Now, if I were in the studio and that timer went off, I'd know that I'm going to be late for something, lunch with my husband, and so I need 10 minutes to get cleaned up and run out and do that. So I wasn't even thinking about that timer, and look how much I got done. So this is what I'm telling you. You have to try the timer. I honest to God, I set that timer, I didn't even give it a second thought, and it just went off right now, and it was like, oh, okay, fine, I'm done. Because now I'm not stressed that I'm gonna be late, but I got to do what I wanted to do. Of course, I don't have to leave. I'm here, I'm gonna paint, but that was just to illustrate how I do that. Okay, so a modified limited palette is, and it was easy to do with this because I knew that I was going to use ultramarine blue. Well, actually, I'm also going to use Terra Rosa, and I'll show you how I use that. I like Terra Rosa and ultramarine blue together to get some nice grays, and like in here is really nice. Transparent oxide red, viridian, and yellow ochre with white. And then I'll modify it with, later on when I need some convenience white, I'll probably use these. So that's where we're going now. I don't know, I might throw a little, I'm just looking at the photograph, and it's possible I might throw in a little orange in those reflective areas. I don't know, I'll have to see how it goes. And also might use a little cad red in where that pink nose is. I mean, and maybe a touch, just because I want a warmer, the Terra Rosa can be a little cool, and so I might want to play with that a little bit. So this is what I'm saying about a modified. I wouldn't have to do any of that. I could just stick with 3 colors. But I want you to see all the possibilities. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do, I think I'm going to play with the eyes a little bit and get them a little more solidified. And then I'll move down to the muzzle area. So basically what I did was I lightened the photo, and we all do that. I know that everybody does that. It's not anything unusual. So that you can at least see the form of the eye. And I need to do that on this photo. So that's what I did. So basically what I'm going to do is pretty much horse's eyes are brown, and so I'm actually just going to put a little transparent oxide red in there, unless they have a whatever bald eye or whatever they call that. And the other interesting thing about their eyes is that I didn't really realize this till recently, if you can believe it, because most of the time their eyes are so dark. But they have more horizontal pupil, and it's kind of interesting. But what it does is it changes how the highlight is in the eye. So the highlight travels more across the pupil instead of like catching kind of like the corner of the ball. ball of the eye. And then the other part, now see, look there. I got a horse. The other part that happens is that the upper eyebrow is going to overhang. So we're going to put some paint on and do that. And I think we're going to create a gray with ultramarine blue and that Terra Rose I was telling you about. We can get a nice gray with transparent oxide red, but it's a different kind of gray. And this seems more suitable, I think. So. All right, so basically, and this lower, actually the lower lid is wider than the upper lid. So I'm just kind of being a little careful right now because I'm just trying to decide how I'm doing this. Yes, see that eyebrow comes out and around. All right, so we want to make sure we do that. And then the one over here is obviously going to be lighter because the light is hitting over here. So and this is a little tricky because I have to put it back in its regular state, because kind of like right now I've kind of got the color blown out, so I could see where that eye was over there. It's got two black eyes. Oh no. Oh, this is going to be kind of a transition. I'm not concerned about getting everything perfect. I'm just trying to get it down. Again, I'm trying to have something to work with. Because I'll be going back in. Just want to get that angle, and then I think I think we're gonna put some of that muzzle in. So. I'm going to dip into this Neo McGilp and it just makes the paint move a little better. I just need to go put this back to where it was so I can see how dark it is. So let's see, that's dropping down, that's dropping down. That's going to be the pink. I have a nose. All right. And I'm going to use a different combination for over there, but And this is going to be kind of reflective in here. I might do, let me think what I'm doing here. I might actually throw a little edge in here. Because this is kind of a dark. That's the other thing is, you know, usually you hear start with your darks, and I don't know, I don't always do that. Sometimes first of all, I start with what excites me. Usually the eyes excite me. Although I'm loving the muzzle on this horse, but I really like defining the eyes. So that's a big attraction, and I'll even put a highlight in right away. There's no reason not to do it. I mean, if that's what's going to keep you interested and excited about your painting, then I'm all for it, and that's what I do. So I could live in the midtones like all day, and I can restate, throw darks in where I think I need them. I see people that they make these gorgeous paintings and they start with the darks and they do, you know, whatever. And it was never, I never could really do that. I mean, I can do it, but it doesn't make me happy. So I'm all for, I want to be happy when I paint. It's my happy place, as they say. Okay, that's a little exaggeration. But anyway, yeah, I'm giving you permission to start wherever you want to start. You don't have to start where I start. If this whole area in here, like, or his ear, you just love that ear, then baby, start with that ear, I'm telling you. Because it's all about maintaining the energy. You know, I'm known for the energy and the aliveness to my paintings, and I believe that's part of it. I don't get bogged down. I mean, it's not that paintings don't get hard. They do, they get hard, but it's always fun. So, like, how bad is that? You know, like when they, you know, those stickers, a bad day of fishing is a good day. I think that's the bumper sticker or something like that. Well, hey, a bad day of painting is a really good day. So that's the way I look at that. So I think what I would do now is, I think I'm going to take some, I'm going to take some transparent oxide red that's already here, and a little Viridian. I might take a little of this Neo McGilt because it seems to be gliding pretty well. Let's see. I'm going to take a little yellow ochre, I think. I like to use yellow ochre sometimes to lighten without using white. I can go a long time, you know, without white if I had to, if I wanted to. All right, let's see what this looks like. I don't know. Thinking. Just a teeny bit of Gamsol. Actually, I don't like that. So by putting some of this in, yeah, I'll be going over this, but it'll give me something nice underneath, and I don't know, I might even want a little bit of this. Yeah. Let's see. What's she doing? I'm playing. I'm seeing. I'm just getting some ideas. You know, I'm actually okay. Just getting a little grays in here. Maybe a little Gamsol, a little of that stuff, Neo McGill. This is kind of like an exploration. You know? Kind of interesting. Okay. The other thing is, I'm going to talk about deliberate brush strokes. You see how I'm putting brush strokes down? I'm putting the brush down and I'm making a brush stroke. I'm not licking the paint, as they say. And I'm thinking, let's put a little, let's go over here and maybe form this a little better. There'll be some light in there. Put that in. I may or may not let some of that stay. I don't know. I think we'll get a clean. Let's see. So my paper towel is my friend. So maybe I'm going to try and create some holes in here. Yeah, so you can do a lot with a paper towel. So you probably already know that. Great.
Hey, would you like to win a beautiful painting worth almost $3,000? We've got a beautiful Joe McGurl plein air study that he's done of the sunset in Maine. It's gorgeous. If you want to have an opportunity to win it, go to paintinggiveaway.com. Just put in your email. That's all you've got to do, and you only need to enter once. We'll be giving away the prize at the end of May. Go to paintinggiveaway.com.
It's not just a photo to me. It's not just an animal. There's more to it. There's, for lack of a better word, there's a spirit to the animal. There's a soul to the animal. I mean, I don't want to sound like tree hugger, you know, whatever. But I see more than what is superficial, and that's what I try and transcribed into my paintings, and that's what I try and share with people. This video is about painting a horse, but my hope is that it's more about painting, and that you'll be able to paint just about anything, what you're going to learn here. We'll talk about color, we'll talk about how to draw, basically how to draw and place things without it being laborious and or boring. It's a teaching video. It's not just about me painting, and you'll hear me say this in the video. I could paint this fabulous painting and do it with little tricks that I've learned along the way, but that's not what this is about. This is about finding ways for just about anyone who has the desire to paint to really learn something and get better at either. It actually could be a starting point, or it can be utilized as a way to get better if you are currently a painter. I seriously started painting. I always did something, even as a little kid. Mostly drawing, and I wasn't really good at it. But as far as being a serious painter, it was probably about 10 years ago. I started drawing seriously a little before that, and then I started to paint, I would say, 10 years ago. So I think I'm a slow learner, because they said it takes 5 years to be a good painter, and I'm telling you, at the 5-year mark, I'm not sure I was a good painter, but I never lost the desire. You know, I think what's unique about this video is that I'm not locked into old concepts. And it's not that they don't work, it's just that I'm always trying to figure out a way for people, for artists, to get light bulb moments, and I talk about that in the video. That's really what I think about. I try and think of ways to say things in ways that they'll say, oh yeah, that's what I was feeling, and that's, oh, well, I could do that. And so I think that's where I differ. I don't get hung up on, you know, step one is this, and then you do that. My thing is, I want you to put paint on the canvas. And I don't care how you do it. I don't care if it's not great, because that's the starting point. And I really feel the start, because I know when I first started painting, I was afraid to paint because I was afraid to get it wrong. And it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, but I know people are in their studio and they're almost they're by themselves, and they're embarrassed to put a stroke on in case it's wrong, but nobody's there. Nobody else is there to see it. And so why are you afraid? So once, it's like learning how to, you know, when you were younger and people would take advantage of you, they'd ask you to do something and you wouldn't want to do it, but you wanted to be liked. It's kind of like when you said no the first time. It just got easier the next time. So this is all about taking that first step and making the next time easier.
That segment comes from the fine art of painting horse portraits from Johanne Mangi. I think you'll get a lot out of that. You can learn more about it at lilyartvideo.com. Now let's get inside Johanne Mangi's head. She's fascinating. Welcome to Interviews with the Artists. I'm Eric Rhodes from Plein Air Magazine and Fine Art Connoisseur. Today we have artist Johanne Mangi. Johanne, welcome.
Hi.
So Johanne, you're a fabulous painter. You're a great landscape painter, great figure painter, but you're really known as an animal painter, and you live it. Tell me about why animals.
I don't know, I connect with animals. I mean, I was the kid that would go in the neighborhood and collect the animals and bring them home and tell my parents that they were lost and they needed a home. It's true. It's true. I don't know. I always wanted to go to Catskill Game Farm, and nobody in my family was into animals like I was, and I never went to Catskill Game Farm.
Oh, there's still time.
Yeah, I know. My husband keeps telling me that. I don't even know if it, I mean, I guess it exists, but it probably would. I've been on safari, so I'm not sure Catskill Game Farm will have the same feeling.
You went on a safari on one of my painting events, and of all things, it's the one event I never got to attend.
I know, we were disappointed.
But you went and photographed game.
Yes.
And then made paintings from them later. Did you do any live paintings while you were there?
I sketched.
You did?
I sketched live, yeah.
Now, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and we loved it so much we went back the following year.
So tell me about, there's a controversy about photographs. Some artists will say, don't paint from photographs. Some artists are fine with it. I think in your case, you almost have to paint from photographs a lot of the time because animals move around a lot. So tell me about that and what the technique is.
Okay. Well, when I first started painting, everybody said, can't paint from photographs. And I felt it was the dirty little secret because I knew a lot of artists that were painting from photographs. However, having said that, they also were painting from life. And so I discovered that it's totally possible to paint from photographs, having that live experience, because it lives with you. So it helps you read a photograph. So even though there's optical illusions even in life, and so you learn how to deal with that when you paint. And there's optical illusions, there's perspective issues in photographs. But if you understand like your chosen subject matter, and in this case, it's animals for me, I'll go and I'll study. And of course, I started primarily with the dogs because I had a pack of 6, and so I would use those dogs. And yes, it was chaotic, but I'd use those dogs as studies. And it got to the point that one of my dogs refused to come up to the studio because he was tired of being a model for 2 years. Seriously, for 2 years, he would not come up. And I'd yell at him, and he does everything I ask. He's a well-trained dog, but this was the one thing he stopped doing. He'd be down on the landing, and he'd look at me, and he's like, nope, not going there, because he got tired of me posing him and making him sit, and, you know. But I found that by studying from life what I was looking at, and I'll use the term landmarks, using landmarks, you know, pivotal points of what I'm looking at, to know that I have to get that in, and I learned that from drawing with Sherry McGraw, that if I would identify certain parts, points, like a point of the hip, or where the light comes down the eyebrow, or something like that. it all reads better. All of a sudden, it reads better. So I would look at things differently. And when I look at a photograph, people are just seeing light and dark. You may see the pattern, but just painting the pattern isn't gonna do it. I've seen people paint that way, and all the dogs look like dogs. I'll use dogs as an example because there's a lot of people that just paint dogs, and because there's fur, they look like mops. There's no structure. There's no skeleton. There's nothing there for the fur to sit on, and so I found that I could start reading a photograph and saying, oh, okay, this is the eye socket, this is the cheekbone, this is the brow, and I could see through it. I'd start reading it that way, instead of saying, oh, there's a ball of fluff here, there's an ear, where's that ear insert? That was an important thing. So it's things like that, and so you start with that. And so I do believe you can paint from photographs. I do, but you can't ignore from life.
So there are people who've only painted from photographs. I used to be one of those people. And I had a Russian master visit my house, and I had done a little bit of plein air painting at that stage, but mostly I was painting from photographs. And he walked into my house and he went, that, and that. I said, what? He said, you did those outdoors, the rest of them you did from photographs. And he was right. And the one thing that people who paint from photographs don't realize is that someone who's experienced in painting from life can pick it out in an instant. What is your best advice to those people?
About painting from photographs?
Yeah.
Go paint outside.
Go paint outside.
It's very obvious. Well, they think they have to go pick up their gear and go wherever. You could go on your patio and put a vase of flowers. You could go outside with your dog. Just put your dog in the garden and paint that. It's like peonies. If you love peonies and it's peony time or something, I put them in a vase. I put them on the table and outside, and I do it with daffodils, and so it's still that opportunity to paint outside, but I'm not necessarily painting the field or the trees, but I'm using the outdoor light to inform what I'm painting.
Now, what's the difference between outdoor light and indoor light? So for instance, if I'm lighting a model with a incandescent or an LED light, I'm still painting from life. Am I going to get the same kind of training doing that as when I go outdoors?
Well, it depends on how good your lighting is. I mean, I have really good lighting in my, but it's going to be different. It is going to be different because of time of day. What's the conditions? It's the experience. It's there's a different feel. There's a different feeling of accomplishment, and I consider myself a fair weather plein air painter. I'm not one of those people that it's raining, I don't care, it's freezing cold, isn't it? No. I don't want too much wind. I don't want it to be too hot, but I love to be outside, and I always thought I'd be a hardcore plein air painter because I'm an outdoor person. I have the wrinkles to prove it. But I've come to realize that I'm a fair weather, and that's fine. That's fine, but I still want to do it.
Well, one of the things that I think is remarkable, obviously I'm very into the whole plein air thing, and I have watched studio painters, people who have been in the studio their whole life and who have made good livings and sold a lot of paintings, who say that the minute they went outdoors and started doing it consistently, they could no longer stand the paintings that they had done before because they could see
sure.
the difference
Sure.
in the light and the form.
Sure. Yeah. No, well, if you're talking about landscape. So
Well,
totally.
but it's true with animals, it's true with anything. No?
I could make anything look like anything.
That's confidence.
But that, no, well, that's experience.
Yeah.
It's experience, because I've done it both ways. So, and actually what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to take photographs of animals who are maybe in a very static pose, and I'm trying to make them do
Come
something.
to life. How do you do that?
I'm not sure. I'm doing it. And I think it has to do with active brushwork. That I think that's part of it. And so there's that energy, and I think also it's how I play off the colors and the values. I think it's possible. I'm doing it now. I just started doing it recently because that's what I wanted to challenge myself. Take this and make this into something more than it is. And I'm doing okay. I mean, I'm in the beginning, but I think it's possible.
So if somebody's watching us now and they want to kind of take this on and start painting their pets or their friends' pets, you have taught a lot of students. You've done a lot of workshops. What are the most common mistakes that people are making, and what's the way to overcome those mistakes?
As far as using the photographs?
Well, either in general, what are the problems that you see most people having?
Okay, I see people being over-obsessed with each individual curl of the coat.
Right.
So they get caught up in
detail,
and they lose sight of the overall shape of the dog. That is very much identifies what the animal is. If you take silhouettes, even a kid can identify, different dog breeds, a lion, a giraffe, whatever.
Right.
So that's the general shape. They lose sight of that and they hone in. I'd say that's the biggest thing. And they all ask me how to paint fur. So I teach them how to paint fur, and they still have problems because it's hard for them. They think that they don't know what to leave out. They think everything is important.
Yeah, and editing as an artist is really an important skill set.
Right.
Right. So how do you learn that? Practice?
You do it. Well, how I get people to do it is I have very distinctive types of, and I hate to call them exercises because I hate 15 strokes and don't repeat a stroke and don't repeat a color, and I hate that. And that's not what we do, but we do fun exercises because I'm trying to retrain their brain so that they look at it differently. They start looking at it differently, and I take them through a process. And that's how I do it with people. But the other thing is I'm a very hands-on teacher, and I will help them individually through that process. But it's very interesting. They get it, and then I walk to the other side of the room and I come back and they don't get it.
Well, one of the great principles of teaching is repetition. I can't tell you how many times I was in a recent workshop and how many times the instructor kept coming over and telling me the same thing, and how many times I forgot it.
Yeah.
Because it's human nature, I suppose.
Yeah, it is.
So there are a lot of famous animal painters and dog painters throughout history. Is there a particular one that you've kind of looked to as an inspiration? Is there somebody that comes to mind?
Yeah, I do. I even have some contemporary ones that I really look to, but I guess the main one, for whatever reason, I mean, he was a very good painter, was Edwin Landseer, and he was a court painter for Queen Victoria, and he's done, he could draw, and he was just the one, but there was always something, and I guess the term is, what's that, when they have human emotions on the animal.
Yeah, amorphism or something
Yeah,
like
something,
that. Yeah.
right, exactly. So I guess there was a little bit of that, and we always talk about our pets, that, oh, he's feeling this way today, or I hurt his feelings, and this, and there is some truth to that. So I think that that was part of what drew me to a lot of his paintings. I mean, even when he did lions and different kinds of animals, and of course, it goes without saying, I'd say Rosa Bonheur. I'm still fascinated by her. I mean, when you think about the time that time period when she painted and kind of what she was up against.
Well, she was a rebel.
She was a rebel.
She was a rebel because she was a woman at a time when women weren't painting. And I think if I remember the story, she never used her first name, or at least not in the beginning, because she didn't want people to know she was a woman.
Right.
Because she wouldn't have been accepted into the salons and so on.
She didn't fit into the mold. And she knew that. Mm-hmm. And so she was going to live the way she wanted to live. Yeah. And she did.
So if you could ask either of those artists a question about painting, the nice thing about artists is that you can look at their paintings and kind of figure it out, but certainly you can't look underneath and see all the things that they knew. But were there any things that come to mind that you would ask either of those artists?
Yeah, I would love to know how they did the multiple animals. Like, there's one in particular that I go see at the British Museum in New Haven. It's one of my all-time favorite paintings. I can't really tell you the name of it.
But it's at the Yale Museum.
It's at the Yale. It's at the British Museum of Yale.
Of Yale, yeah.
And there's a tacked up white horse. There is a Newfoundland dog. There's a trying to think what I think it's. There's a falcon. Falconry, and they're in a stone like stable, and it's amazing. Every bit of that painting it's actually on my. It's a screensaver on my iPad. Well, actually, just the dog, but I study that all the time. I'm just so fascinated.
So you're curious about how they.
Yeah, and I read recently how Bonheur did the horse fair, that very famous, horse painting, and it's monumental. And I mean, she did more than one. There's a smaller version, the Metropolitan Museum has the huge one, and then there's a smaller version, and that's at the Tate in Britain.
Do you ever have any desire to do monumental paintings, or to have the ultimate painting that you've done for your life?
I think about it, but I'm not there yet. I'm not quite there yet. I've got little snippets rolling around of what that would entail and what that would be, and I'm not quite there yet. I mean, I admire all these people that put out, they what was it this week? The Southeastern Wildlife Exposition. The big show every year, and they put out these massive paintings, and there's a lot of good ones, but there's a lot of them that I look at them and they're not alive to me. There's just paintings of animals. Mm-hmm. And then there are a few mm-hmm. that are really outstanding. Yeah. And I wonder how they do these 40 by 60s. And I mean, I get that, but I mean, they'll do a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And obviously you have them going all at the same time, but for the most part. And I'm really fascinated by that, but I'm not quite there yet for that. I will do that, because I think that's where I have to go.
Right. Well, this has been terrific. Thank you so much for spending time with us today and giving us a little bit of a feel of what's inside your head.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah, it is scary. Well, this has been Interviews with the Artist. I'm Eric Rhodes, and our artist guest today, Johanne Mangi. Thank you, Johanne.
Oh, thank you.
Well, that was Johanne Mangi and the fine art of painting horse portraits. Hope you enjoyed it. You can learn more about it at lilyartvideo.com. I'm Eric Rhodes. Thanks for watching.
It's not just a photo to me. It's not just an animal. There's more to it. There's, for lack of a better word, there's a spirit to the animal. There's a soul to the animal. I mean, I don't want to sound like tree hugger, you know, whatever. But I see more than what is superficial, and that's what I try and transcribed into my paintings, and that's what I try and share with people. This video is about painting a horse, but my hope is that it's more about painting, and that you'll be able to paint just about anything, what you're going to learn here. We'll talk about color, we'll talk about how to draw, basically how to draw and place things without it being laborious and or boring. It's a teaching video. It's not just about me painting, and you'll hear me say this in the video. I could paint this fabulous painting and do it with little tricks that I've learned along the way, but that's not what this is about. This is about finding ways for just about anyone who has the desire to paint to really learn something and get better at either. It actually could be a starting point, or it can be utilized as a way to get better if you are currently a painter. I seriously started painting. I always did something, even as a little kid, mostly drawing, and I wasn't really good at it. But as far as being a serious painter, it was probably about 10 years ago. I started drawing seriously a little before that, and then I started to paint, I would say, 10 years ago. So I think I'm a slow learner, because they said it takes 5 years to be a good painter, and I'm telling you, at the 5-year mark, I'm not sure I was a good painter, but I never lost the desire. You know, I think what's unique about this video is that I'm not locked into old concepts. And it's not that they don't work, it's just that I'm always trying to figure out a way for people, for artists, to get light bulb moments, and I talk about that in the video. That's really what I think about. I try and think of ways to say things in ways that they'll say, oh yeah, that's what I was feeling, and that's, oh, well, I could do that. And so I think that's where I differ. I don't get hung up on, you know, step one is this, and then you do that. My thing is, I want you to put paint on the canvas. And I don't care how you do it. I don't care if it's not great, because that's the starting point. And I really feel the start, because I know when I first started painting, I was afraid to paint because I was afraid to get it wrong. And it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, but I know people are in their studio and they're almost they're by themselves, and they're embarrassed to put a stroke on in case it's wrong, but nobody's there. Nobody else is there to see it. And so why are you afraid? So once, it's like learning how to, you know, when you were younger and people would take advantage of you, they'd ask you to do something and you wouldn't want to do it, but you wanted to be liked. It's it's kind of like when you said no the first time, it just got easier the next time. So this is all about taking that first step and making the next time easier.